بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام على ولي الله وحبيبه السلام على خليل الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والحمد والثناء لرب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم جميعا. I share my condolences with all of you and with the Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi, Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajum al-Sharif. On the occasion of Arbaeen, where we remember Imam Hussain alayhi salam, his movement, the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, the tragic events of Karbala, but the meaningful teachings, the lessons that we have to learn from all these events that have transpired, that affect the world all the same today. In the Quran it says, يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. In Surah Al-Jumu'ah actually it says, everything in the heavens and in the earth does tasbih and remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything that exists, all of the creation, the expanding universe, all of the animals, plant life, depths of the oceans that we're unaware of, Bahr al-Suf, all of the ajaib, all of the wonders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation does tasbih and remembers and is connected to its source vigilantly. And so the value of a human being becomes in this connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so I was going to delve into this hadith a little bit, and we began talking about the hadith from Imam Hussain al-Askari alayhi salam, who talks about these signs of a believer. And he outlines those 5 signs, which we began talking about today at Friday prayer. And some of the first part will a little bit gloss over, as we had begun this topic a little bit earlier, and we'll go into a little bit about some of the other ways to look at and understand the importance and value of the things that the Imam is telling us are the signs of a believer. Everything does this tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and can have this potential for a great connection with Allah, which is the value of that thing inherently. But how does it get there? What is that vehicle? How can we make that connection? And so when we have things that tell us that these are some of those signs and examples of what that looks like, then we want to pay special attention to those things. And the first one that was mentioned from the Imam was the signs was the 51 rakats of salat. It mentions about these mustahab prayers, the nawafil that are made throughout the day. And we went into detail earlier about the breakdown of each one of these prayers. What does that look like? I want to also say that it's very important for us to see these as possible and tangible. Right? I think that sometimes what happens is we look at this and say, mashallah, 51 rakats, that this is really hard or really big, and maybe not see it as doable or tangible. I think the other thing that we have to also look at, and this is a huge dars for us to take to all aspects of our life, right? And that is that even when the loftiest example of the goal you want to set is not, maybe it's difficult to attain, maybe not impossible, but if it's difficult, you have to think about your progress and your journey and your trajectory not being canceled by a problem or an obstacle. Right? In our life, we're constantly trying to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Things come up, right? And many people will say, 51 rakats, I don't have time to do. Now there's two things that I want to consider. One is that the timing of things is one of the most important aspects. So we talked in Ramadan a lot about this nazma amrakum, and that taqwa goes hand in hand with being organized in our affairs, right? Being able to plan ahead and schedule for these things. But the other aspect that's very important is, what if I actually am very busy and this is not very tangible for me? What if for some reason I'm wanting to, but I'm just really not finding the time? Or not finding the shawq and the enthusiasm or some other reason. One of the things that I think is one of the most important dars to learn is the idea of maintaining what we have without abandoning our trajectory completely. So modify, but don't abandon. What does that mean? It means that I'm in a place where these 51 rakats are a goal and an aspiration, but I'm in a place where I'm not there yet. People they crawl before they walk usually. Or take some kind of initial baby steps before you dive into something or jump into something. Sometimes those initial steps are helpful. So a person may need to start with just making 2 rakats. Just making one of the nawafil, just making the morning one. To begin to place himself in the category at least, right? So I'm in the conversation of who is a mu'min by this standard of this hadith, where the first one was, he's the one who does all of the nawafil throughout the day. So this dars of modify but don't abandon, please take this, apply it to everything when it comes to your spiritual work. What does it look like? It looks like, for example, Salatul Layl, the night prayer. There's so much emphasis and so much hadith about it. We've talked a lot about it in the past. The emphasis are tremendous. Some of the teachers would tell the students that if you can't do the whole thing, do the last 3 rakats. Do the shaf and witr. If you can't do that, if you can't do all of it before the time, do it afterwards. If you can't do it after the sunrise, do it any time throughout the day. So modify but not abandon means that I may feel that I need to make concessions in some of the spiritual work that I'm doing, but I don't need to completely abandon. A mu'min should read 50 ayats of Quran a day. Yes. But he can also, as he's in a place where he can do 20, that's a great start. And if you are a person who can read 1 ayat of Quran a day, for example, then this is also very valuable. La yastawun, as it says, like the person who does and doesn't do, these are not the same. So maybe I'm not at the 50 ayats of, for example, of one of those recommendations for a believer, but I do something where I don't completely abandon. Oh, well, I'm not doing 50, so I should do nothing. No, I do something. I modify this 50 to be even 1, to be a few words of this, to just be Fatiha that I say on my tongue, but I don't abandon my growth. I don't abandon my trajectory of moving close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The other thing that I will mention about this is what Imam Sajjad alayhi salam has said. They say salawat. Where he explains how the nawafil have the role of compromising, of compensating the other prayers which may have had some shortcomings. Some of the other prayers that we may have done are wajib prayers that we rushed through, or that we did almost absent-minded, or things like that. It says this is a way to make up for that. So in and of itself, it's important because it's modifying or supplementing our daily prayers that we're already making. And some of them in our lifetime we've had shortcomings. This is a way to enhance that. The next thing that was mentioned is the Ziarat of Imam Hussain alayhi salam is the second sign of a believer. We have many mentioned that Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari was the first person to reach and do the Ziarat of Arbaeen for the Shuhada of Karbala and Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And there's some difference of opinion about other possibilities. But this tradition is a tradition of value. The idea of 40 is valued in different contexts as well, within Islam, within spiritual growth. It is seen as a marker in different capacities. And when someone passes away, we have this idea of doing their own Arbaeen, or doing 40 for a person who has passed away, to remember them, to send blessings for them. But so much of what we do in terms of Arbaeen and the things associated with it are not so much for Imam Hussain as they are for us, actually. This is a reality. We benefit so much from being connected to this incredibly powerful movement. I love the interpretation of divine phenomena. Because how can you explain this? As I was mentioning earlier, that so many people who are so famous, so well known, so loved, if they go anywhere right now, there would be crowds endless to be around them and see them. Actors, athletes, all kinds of people have come and gone, kings, rulers. No one is remembered in the same way as Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Who has this pride? Who has the honor to be able to say this? The Ziyarat of Arbaeen specifically sets apart everyone. Not just people who would go on Ashura, or not just people who would do Ziyarat of Imam Hussain, but people who would even afterwards want to go again, or have another kind of enthusiasm and energy to connect with Imam Hussain. Another reason, another excuse, if you will, for a lover to connect with their beloved. So it is a special thing. And however, one thing that I would like to say about this, a lot of times, and it's very important to emphasize what this ziyarat and what this pilgrimage looks like today, what it has evolved into. It's very important to emphasize this, to emphasize the millions of people that are coming, where they are coming from all over the world, how many people are walking, how many people walk barefoot, how many people show their reverence to Imam Hussain, how many people who are whose hospitality shines through in the way of the Ahlul Bayt. It's very unique experiences. the walk that many people get to experience, or even just the Ziyarat itself. From anyone who's gone, they tell their stories of just incredible experiences, right? Incredible hospitality, incredible kindness. The Hussaini attributes are just effervescent. They're in the air. But the question that I would pose is this a spiritual walk or a physical walk? What is Arbaeen? What does it mean to me? Is the physical walk the meaning alone? It certainly seems to be a part of it, this physical walk, and what's a part of that. But I think we have to be careful, because this is always one of the areas where in history, for Muslims and for others, it happens. And we can look at the event of Imam Hussain, and I'll explain what I'm talking about. Pay close attention. We can look at the event of Imam Hussain and we can see this as well. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. For the love of Imam Hussain, please recite one louder salawat. And for the coming of the 12th Imam, please recite one more loud salawat. We have to be careful not to become only focused on the superficial. We have to focus on the essence, not just what is on the surface. Right? We have to focus on what is the meaning. Salat has a zahir, an apparent aspect of it, which is important and must be observed. How we stand, our state of wudu, our state of calm, all of these things. But it has a batin also, an inner aspect of I'm talking with my lover, I'm talking with my creator, I'm asking for my needs. This is a source of giving me motivation, of strength. This is a time for rizq and asking for hajat, or it's a time for just being humble and grateful. All of these things are that inner part, but these go together always. And Muharram is the same, and so is Arbaeen in this sense. Right? And we have to always remember the essence of Karbala, the dhat of Karbala, the heart of Karbala, the qalb of Karbala, the reality of Karbala. Not just what we saw on the surface, not just the battle of Karbala, not just the fight of Karbala, not the thirst of Karbala alone. And so likely, similarly, we have to understand the importance of the walk, and what does that represent as a divine manifestation, and what it has evolved into right now in this day and age, where Islam is so much under attack, but still the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt shine in a way that nothing else shines. It's like the sun in comparison to the rest of the stars. Right? So what is that batin of the inner part of Karbala? This is the Ziarat, that is what is being spoken about as well. Right? And for these different 5 points that the Imam is making, there is a lot of different understanding and interpretations. This is one aspect that I'm focusing on. So the spiritual Ziyarat of Imam Hussain is something that should never be abandoned at any moment in time. Whether or not you can physically go to Ziyarat, whether or not you can afford to go to Ziyarat, whether or not you're able to even do anything remotely in this shape and form of physical Ziyarat, the spiritual Ziyarat should never wane. What you are doing in spiritual Ziyarat is the remembrance of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. When you are in face of the Taghut and the enemy, you remember Imam Hussain alayhi salam. When you have a choice to do right or wrong, you choose to do right. This is the Ziyarat of Imam Hussain, the Ziyarat of the hearts that must happen. This is the Ziyarat that we must take other people on. This is the Ziyarat journey that each one of us is responsible for a caravan, even if that is just one other person. How can we be Hussaini in any capacity without sharing the message of Imam Hussain with others? How could it be possible? When Imam Hussain is yelling from the depths, هَلْ مِن نَاصِرٍ يَنْصُرُنِي? How do we not answer right now, today? Let us take people's hearts to Karbala. How do you take someone's heart to Karbala without sharing a single word about Karbala? The time of Arbaeen and Imam Hussain is not just a time to focus on the superficial aspects or the outer aspects. These go hand in hand. And this is this element of the Ziyarat of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, inshallah, that we're going to focus on. Sallallahu alayhi Muhammad wa. I'm going to go to the next one. And wearing the ring on the right hand. Fil Yameen. And one of the things that it mentions about this is that some of the opposers would wear their ring on the left hand to show their opposition, and so this was one of the ways to be distinct and different. There are some times where there are elements of things where you see where the Imams or the Ma'soom may be recommending, because this makes a distinction of who the believers are. That there should be not a time when the believers are unclear who are they and who are the rest of the people. Right? This is the whole point in the hadith, the distinction of what sets someone apart. Right? And this is also part of what this example is about. There's a lot of recommendations in a hadith about the different rings. And for each one of these rings, I mentioned one of the different hadiths so that we can kind of have a general understanding. Each and every one of them has a specific benefit, it says. When we're talking about the firuza, for example, one of the rings that are recommended, it says that the person who wears this will never experience poverty. When it talks about the aqiq, there's different hadith that mention about that, about protection, for example. When it talks about there's the hadith it mentions about this that has a benefit of when you're meeting with someone who is of authority, to wear this, it gives a sense of a kind of power to that person, an air, a haiba, so to speak. And each one of these rings, they have some different unique things that have been mentioned, or some of the benefits of them, and why we may wear them. And there's some nice videos and hadith and that go into more details about them. This is one of the easy things to do when we're talking about one of the sides, right? So what I wanted to distinguish about the rings, is there's some things where you have to put a little bit more effort. 51 rakats is going to take a lot more energy than putting on a ring, but it's still one of those signs. So this is an easy one to do, and so we should try to do this, and we should encourage others. It's a good gift to give. If you travel, bring gifts, give to your brothers and sisters who do not have, so that they can have the different ways that benefit them spiritually, and it's a kind of sadaqah for you as well. Sallallahu alaihi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This is the prostration, to press one's head on the earth in this way. Sajda itself is one of the most important manifestations, and we know the story from the beginning of creation about Iblis and the angels and the Malaika do sajda. Iblis doesn't want to do sajda. Not doing sajda was a sign of his arrogance and pride and opposition to God, which is why it's what is recommended. One of the most loved aspects of salat is long sajdas, When it talks about a person doing some spiritual work on themselves and getting closer to Allah, one of the ways to do this is long sajdas. A little more time, a little more humbleness, right? The head put to the earth. When you read about this, it says that one of the things it mentions that Allah subhanahu, in a hadith where it's a hadith Qudsi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that He found the reason why Prophet Moses was Kalim Allah, and the one who speaks with Allah, and Allah gave him this ability and this connection with Him, this special title, was because he said he looked at the servants of Allah and found Prophet Musa to be extremely humble. In his humility and humbleness, he was exceptional. And one of the things that it mentions is how he would place his head and rub it against the earth in sajda. And this rubbing was a part of the humility. And we have some mention that, for example, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam would place his cheeks on the turba, or he got down from his horse when he entered, I forget which town, and he made a 4 rakat salat, and then he cried and he put his face like this on the turba. This idea of submission to Allah is what this represents. The idea of being a Muslim, this is what is this placing my head on the earth. It is me saying that with whatever I have and am, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so much greater, so much more mighty. I humble myself before Him. My existence is humble before Him. This humbleness is one of the keys to become close to Allah. Just like the arrogance is one of the ways to get distant from Allah. Look at the people and companions of Imam Hussain. Juxtapose those people who are on the other side, who fought against him. Even in their remembrance, how we remember them. This servitude is an example of that. And the next thing that's mentioned, and the last thing that's mentioned, وَالْجَهْرُ بِبِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ. And this, not just of saying of the word, of the phrase, or giving it importance, or making it central, but even more than just saying it, the open saying it. This is important. One of the reasons why I think this is uniquely important, because Jah takes some courage. It's not just easy. Anybody can say Bismillah. Trust me, Shaitan says it. Yes. But this saying it loud. Think about saying in the face of injustice. That is what is Hussaini. He will speak in the face of the enemies without fear or shame, without being shy, without worry of the consequences even. This is the Hussaini element. You know, I remember trying to do some work with youth. And so in trying to do this youth work, I invited people from the general community to come, to make it open, irrespective of their what affiliation they had as a Muslim. They were Sunni or Shia. This was a youth event, open to youth. And so there was one of the things which was very important was to have some kind of training, some kind of teaching which would give and empower young people. Teach them to take pride in who they are. Teach them that they should be proud of their deen and their Islam. They don't need to be fearful or shy of that. And if there's something to be shy of, it should be those things which Allah does not like. Right? It takes a confidence to kind of say it with your chest to be a Muslim in that sense. This is the jah, this is the open and apparent manifestation of this Bismillah. Sometimes people look at the followers of the Ahlul Bayt and some people criticize the concept of taqiyya, or the concept of my life and death is in danger. That, like for example, Prophet Musa alayhi salam, when they were going to take him to Fir'aun, we're going to deal with you. You're saying that there's some other God. But how he responded was a kind of dissimulation in that sense. He said, no, what do you mean? We heard that you're trying to invite people to a different deen. It doesn't know. Musa said, Wallah, my Lord is the same as yours. We have the same Lord. But Prophet Musa and his niyat and intention, he's not talking about Fir'aun, he's talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But they understand, oh, okay, you're talking about Fir'aun, okay, good. They didn't understand, but he knew that. He steps ahead of them, right? And so this was necessary. Why? Because of the threat that exists to him. His life was in danger. So what I want to say about this, especially in respect to us as Muslims today, in this day and age, is that we are less and less in an era of taqiyya, brothers and sisters. And when you're hiding your Islam, in fact, many people are doing the greatest disservice to Abu Abdullah al-Hussain by doing so. The greatest disservice. Who gave his life to share the message of Imam Hussain, to share the message of Islam. Gave his life to share this pure message because it was being tainted and corrupted by the powers that be, by the Yazids of the time, by the Zalimeen of the time. He had to be confident to speak the truth in face of all of this. No fear, no hiding, no let's take a deal. What will it take for me to be on your team? There was a comedian that said he used to grow up around a lot of gangs. Whether it was Bloods, Cribs, who's wearing blue, red, you can't wear some colors in some neighborhoods. He said, at some point, I realized that I couldn't be in this gang or that gang or this gang or that gang. He said, I was in the gang that was winning. Whoever's winning, that's the gang that I'm in. And many people are like this in this kind of hopping on the bandwagon. It's very easy. But things are difficult. Mu'mineen need to speak up. Who will say this in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, strong and proud in face of injustice? Who will say the labbaik ya Hussain in face of the injustices of this world? Who will opt out of a system of injustice? Who will find ways and solutions for Muslims in this world? This is what these traditions have to translate into. Allow the Bismillah is not just a saying of Bismillah, but then when it comes time to live Bismillah, I shy away from the opportunity. For this reason, for that reason. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. الشهداء. Peace be unto you, O Aba Abdullah. We go through a lot of difficulties in our lifetime. And oh Allah, I haven't seen any mu'min, any believer that hasn't had to go through the tests and the imtihanat of this world. Through straits, through difficulties, sometimes financial, sometimes family, sometimes friends, test of relationships, test of being, test of our belief, test of our existence, our commitment, our love to the Imam, Imam Hussain, test of our commitment to the Imam of our time, test of this thing we call Iman, test of all the claims that we make. We have a lot of tests. And we go through difficulties and we go through tragedies of our own. One of the greatest things that we can do to help us to cope with the difficulties of the tragedies that we deal with is to remember the tragedies of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, to remember the tragedies of Karbala. Have you ever seen the tragedies of Karbala? Have you ever seen the hearts worn on the sleeve of believers? Have you seen martyrs ready to give their life? Have you seen Karbala? Have you seen the shuhada of Karbala? Have you seen those who will give their life for Allah? Have you seen a young girl crying for water? Have you seen Sakina looking for her father? Have you seen Ali Asghar thirsty for water? Have you seen a 6-month-old baby thirsty for water? Have you seen children waiting for their hero? Have you seen Abbas approaching Farad? Have you seen a man fighting without arms? Have you seen Abul Fadl al-Abbas? Have you seen the power of the youth? Have you seen Auna Muhammad on the field? Have you seen the taste of sweeter than honey? Have you seen the Shuhada of Karbala? Have you seen the difficulties of Karbala? Have you seen a sister and mother carry the weight of her father and brother? Have you seen what it means to be Zainabi? Have you seen what it means to be Hussaini? Have you seen the tyrants poking at the head of Hussain? Have you seen Yazid poking at the head of Hussain? Have you seen the mighty Sajjad standing before him? Have you seen the powerful words of Imam Sajjad? Have you seen that this is beautiful from Zainab? Have you seen that she saw it as Jameel and beauty? Have you seen the power of the Shuhada of Karbala? Have you seen while people walk in Arbaeen? Have you seen why the hearts are in Karbala tonight? Have you seen why we are in Arbaeen tonight? Have you seen all of the hearts in Karbala? Have you seen all of those Shuhada of Karbala? Imam al-Hussain, Imam al-Hussain. When he calls out to all of the people there, هل من ناصر ينصرني هل من ناصر ينصرني. Who will answer the call of Rasulullah? Who will defend the haram of Rasulullah? Who will defend Imam al-Hussain? Who will defend Islam and the Ahl al-Bayt? Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Sallallahu alayka ya Mazlum bil Karbala. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، فلا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام على جميع شهداء كربلاء.